I guess I'm back. I felt like being back, so I'm back. So I'm here. Today, I just wanted to get back into recording and doing the thing I do the most is Magic the Gathering. So, if you remember, the last couple of streams I did were Magic the Gathering. A little sick, but today I'm gonna go over some decks, a deck, I guess. So let me show you. These are my 3 decks. If you notice little stickers, it's because I have one giant group of cards, and to make all 3 of the decks real, I'm not gonna buy 3 $500 cards, because why would I do that? Yeah, so I have stickers on them because they match. Like, let me find some. Nope, those are all green. Look, like this card has all 3. So this goes in all 3 decks. But anyways, today the deck I'm going to be going over is Pir and Toothy. I have Pir and Toothy, Shiraz and Brawlin, and Calamax. But today I'm going over Pir and Toothy because it's probably my favorite deck I've ever built, to be honest. So, yeah. I guess we just jump right into this. Pir is a 2 mana and a green 1/1 with partner with Toothy, imaginary friend, that says if one or more counters would be put on a permanent your team controls, that many plus 1 of each of those kind of counters are put on that permanent instead. Toothy, imaginary friend, says partner with Pir, imaginative rascal. He's a 3 and a blue for a 1/1. Wow, that's trash, ain't it? No. Whenever you draw a card, put a 1/1 counter on Toothy, imaginary friend. When Toothy leaves the battlefield, draw a card for each 1/1 counter on it. So backstory behind this deck, I built it and blew it up about like 7 months ago on the way back from Jacksonville playing competitive Magic, because I was playing a deck that I didn't like all that much, but it was just very powerful. So I was trying to find something that I liked and was powerful, but not like stupid, doing the same thing every time. I don't want to play ad nauseam every game anymore. So I found this by accident. I went on EDH Rec and I kept pressing random until I think I saw Toothy first. And my brother was like, hey, I play him in one of my decks. He's pretty good. I was like, huh. Mono blue, that's lame. But then I saw the partner and I was like, okay, Simic is fine. Let's try this. The first thing that drew me to Toothy was the fact that he does not say when Toothy dies, draw a card for each 1/1 counter armament, so whenever he leaves the battlefield. So, my first thought for the deck was flickers. So, these are the 3 flicker cards that I run. Essence Flux, Planner Incision, Siren Druce, and Ghostly Flicker. They all bounce Toothy and bring him back to the battlefield. So, when that happens, that means... So, say Toothy is on 2 counters. Okay, drawn 2 cards with Toothy out. With Pir on the battlefield, if I Essence Flux Toothy, so Toothy flickers, his trigger goes on the stack, and then he comes back in. So at that point, I would draw 2 cards because he left the battlefield. He doesn't have to die, but he left the battlefield. Pir would trigger on him. So for each counter that we put on him, it's double. So instead of coming back with 2, he sees his card draw because he has the ability has to resolve with him coming back onto the battlefield before his ability can trigger. It's just the ruling Magic is how it has to be. So Toothy is seeing his own card draw, so he's getting 2 1/1 counters. But with Pir, you get 4 because it's doubling. So basically, you're just doubling your counters every single time. And I was like, wow, that is awesome. So yes, flickers are the name of the game. The best card in this deck would be Displacer Kitten. This card is, if you can resolve a Displacer Kitten and a Toothy, it's basically better than Ad Nauseam Peter Thebus. I'm not saying it is, because it's a whole lot harder to get there, and you're casting a lot more spells than just one Ad Nauseam Peter Thebus, but Because everything that's a non-creature spell, you flicker the Toothy, it sees it, so 4 would go to 8, 8 would go to 16, draw 16, 16 would go to 32, you're drawing 16, 32 would go to 64, and yeah. So how do you win? Laboratory Maniac. I've seen a couple of people playing this with Thassa's Oracle, but I just think that Thassa's Oracle doesn't really have any synergy with this deck, because it's a dead card. Because you can't exactly draw to where there's no cards in your library anymore. Because once you get to 64 counters on Toothy, at that point, there's no way your deck has no way it has more than 64 cards. So with Labman, you can just keep going and going. You can play it turn 1, people are like, oh, okay, that's fine. I'm not going to do anything with Labman turn 1. Then turn 3 or 4 comes around, and you just win the game. That's the point of the deck, is just to do nothing, chill, don't look threatening, advance your board state, win. So that's where Labman comes in. And this card, the Ozolith. I think this card is freaking insane in this deck, and it has performed for me so well, but nobody plays it in their list, which I don't understand why. The Ozolith reads, whenever a creature you control leaves the battlefield, if it had counters on it, put those counters on the Ozolith. So, Toothy flickers with 16 counters on the Ozolith. But, with what Pir says, whenever one or more counters we put on a permanent your team controls, that many +1. So, it goes up one time. 16 goes 17. But, yeah. And the reason that Toothy and Pir interact so well with each other is that, so this says, whenever it leaves, so this is getting all 16 at once, so it'd only go up to 17. But with Toothy triggers on each individual card draw, so it's basically just doubling the amount of counters on him. So Toothy doesn't say, oh, you drew 8 cards, you get 16 counters. It says, oh, you drew a card, 2 counters, drew a card, 2 counters, drew a card, so on and so forth. So that's why that works the way it does. But the Ozolith says, whenever creature leaves the battlefield, if I had counters on it, put it on the Ozolith. So whenever Toothy leaves, he gets all the 1/1 counters on the Ozolith. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if the Ozolith has counters on it, you may move all counters from the Ozolith from the target creature. So, say your Toothy's at 16 counters. Okay. It gets removed. You draw your 16 cards. 16 cards go into the Ozolith. You recast Toothy if you have the mana. He gets his 16 counters straight back. So you can just keep going to where you were at after you got removed. And Toothy being removed is fine in this deck. If Toothy's at like 4 or 5 counters, like, people can remove Toothy and you can draw 5 cards and you'll be just fine getting back to where you were at. So that was just the deck specific cards. This is the main plan of the deck. Flickers, Displacer Kitten, Labman, win the game. Moving on. I have this separated. I think next is removal. No, card advantage. Okay. Advantage. So the deck runs all your basic advantage: Brainstorm, Mystic Aurora, Preordain, best card in the game, Rhystic Study, Ponder, Sylvan Library, all the staples, Cataxian Probe. It runs Dig Through Time because you're not in Underworld Reach, so there's not really a need for the graveyard all that much. Noxus Rival to get your things back. Of One Mind goes really well in this deck because Of One Mind reads, it's a 2 and a blue, costs 2 less to cast. If you control a human creature or a non-human creature, draw 2 cards. Pir is a human, Toothy is a non-human, so this is 1 blue, draw 2 cards, and just little synergies, it works well. A card that I'm on the fence about is Windfall. So Windfall says each player discards his or her hand and draws cards equal to the greatest number a player discarded this way. So the whole point of the deck is to have 50 cards in your hand. So Windfall doesn't seem all that good. But in the early game, if you get a bunch of rampant Windfall in your opening hand, it's like, okay, now I have my field set up and I made them wheel their hand that they mulligan for. So it's kind of like a slowdown slash stacks piece, and it kind of just dumps people's hands away. But I'm still considering it in the deck because I don't want it to be like I draw 50 cards, windfall's the only thing I could do. You can't let other people draw 50 cards. It's just over. Like that's just stupid. Frightening Search is a card that I like. Most of the time it's free, or it's a ramp spell if you use your Mana Critter, Soul Ring, and a land. It's a very good card, I believe. Since it's Divining Top, this card is a good card, but it's mainly in here for another card in the deck, Counterbalance. And Phantasmal Image. You're not in red, so you don't have access to a Dockside, or you're not in white-black, so you don't have access to a Tymna. There's just so many good creatures that you can have. So I put this in the advantage slot because 1, 2 Displacer Kittens would be insane. Just saying. But there's a couple of things you can grab. Dockside, Displacer Kitten, those are the two main ones. But, yep, wraps it up for advantage. I think, yeah, removal. So one card I'm testing in this deck, I'll just play it out first, is Hullbreaker Horror. I just think that it's a very good control piece. It's a very good balance piece. Make infinite mana when you're doing your Toothy flickers, and because once Toothy starts rolling, it's very hard to stop because you're drawing 16 cards and 32 cards, so it's very hard to stop. So once you just play this Hullbreaker Horror, it's just you can play your spells to stop counter spells or bounce everybody's board if you don't get there, and yeah. So run staple removals like Cyclonic Rift, Chain of Vapor, Snap. These are all things that can bounce. I guess we'll do non-creatures first. So non-land, these bounce anything. This bounce, Alchemist Retrieval bounces anything. There's artifact removal for things like do run Finale Devastation in the deck, so and Neoform and Eldritch Evolution, so Grafdigger's Cage hurts. Any stacks pieces that say Thorn of Amethyst, makes spells one more, hurts a lot. Yeah. So for artifact removal, we run Resculpt, which also hits a creature. Oko is technically artifact removal. Nature's Claim, not a very popular card, but I mean, it's good. Force of Vigor, it's a very good card. So yep, and then we do have, along with all the non-specifics, we do have Stern Dismissal. I think this card goes in every deck ever because Versus Cody is the best card in the format. And Stern Dismissal says return target creature or enchantment and opponent controls to its owner's hand. So I mean, if somebody say Gilded Drakes your commanders, that bounces them to your hand. Also run Gilded Drake because card's amazing. People rely on their commanders. Gilded Drake a Tymna, Gilded Drake a Gila, Gilded Drake anything, honestly. And then we have some creature specific removal with Snap, basically free removal or a ramp spell with rocks, and March's Rolling Mist, which is just a good card in general. And that does it for removal. Moving on to interaction. So yeah, I'll go some of the interesting ones. Remember Malevolent Hermit because card's awesome, and once the backside is the main. It's kind of dark, but excited of the smoke sleeves. But it says it's a you cast it for its disturb cost, 2 and a blue, which is disturbed is casting it from your graveyard. Flying, non-creature spells you control can't be countered, and if it were put into a graveyard, exile it instead. So just basically you want this out for once you get going, you don't want to stop. So that's there. We do run Counterbalance because this deck is a bit slower than the rest. We run the Sensei Stop for the Counterbalance. trying to find. I guess this really card that doesn't really see play, but I think should be a staple is Trickbind. Trickbind is 1 and a blue. It has Split Second. Split Second says as long as this spell is on the stack, players can't play spells or activate abilities that aren't mana abilities. So this card reads counter target activated or triggered ability. If a permanent's ability is countered this way, activate abilities of that permanent can't be played this turn. But of course, mana abilities can be targeted, just the rule of Magic. I think this card is awesome. It's a very strong card, I believe. Split Second makes this card so much better than Stifle, which I was running before. Thing is, this card stopped me from losing in a tournament because he went to go start his Loop, which is an activated ability on his commander, and I played Trickbind, and nobody knew what the card did. So he goes, okay, I'll counter it. I go, Split Second, which I already mentioned before. This guy just wasn't listening. But I said, okay, it has Split Second. You can't counter it. He goes, okay, I'll just activate the ability on the stack. No, it has Split Second. You cannot do that. So basically, the only way to, like, get rid of this is something I don't know. It's very hard to go around. There's nothing you can really do about it. So I just think the card's awesome. Trickbind at Dogside, Trickbind, like I said, a win condition. So I just think it's a very good card. Other than that, we just run the staples: Force of Will, Flusterstorm, Pact of Negation, Force Negation, Mana Drain, Mental Misstep, Offer, Dispel, Mind Break Trap, Swan Song, Spell Pierce, Fierce Guard, and Veil of Summer. It's just common, just the counter spells that go in every single blue deck, and then Veil of Summer is a green staple. But, yeah, that does it for interaction. Is this Tutors? Do have some Tutors in this deck, even though it's in Simic. Simic's not the best for its Tutors, but we run Muddle the Mixture. This is also a counter spell for interaction. Counter target instant sorcery spell for 2 blue mana. But it has Transmute 1 blue and a blue, which is you pay 1 blue and a blue, discard it, search your library for a card with equal CMC to the card. So it's 2. This could get a lot, honestly. It could get a Finale of Devastation for your Laboratory Maniac or your Displacer Kitten. That's really the main reason it's in the deck. But yeah, you run Finale, Neoform, and Eldritch. Finale is there just as a recursion spell, basically. And Neoform and Eldritch are good for... They synergize with Toothy because you can sacrifice him, get his card draw, and then get your thing. Spellseeker, if you're going for a win, you can get a counter spell, or you can get your Finale or Neoform or any of that, or you can get a Flicker card, which is always good. And I guess Muddle the Mixture also gets the other Flicker card as well. You have your Mystical Tutor, obviously goes in every deck. Then you have your Corrupt Rotation. Corrupt Rotation is a very strong card that says additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a land. Search your library for a land card, put that card onto the battlefield, and then shuffle your library. Very strong card that should go in every green deck. Yep, that's pretty much just for Tutors. So let's go to Ramp now. I think that's all the... Oh, that's a Ramp card. That's also a Ramp card. Oh. Okay. Ramp. Okay, so Artifact Ramp. We have all the basics. We do run Simic Signet because we love the pips. Arcane Signet, staple. Slow Ring, staple. Chrome Mox, staple. Jewel Lotus, staple. Talisman of Creativity. Or Curiosity, sorry. Lotus Petal. Is it Creativity or Curiosity? Curiosity. Lomao. Mox Opal, Mana Vault, and Mana Crypt. There's the artifact ramp. And then we have the other type of ramp. We have our creature ramps, we have our elves, Llanowar elves, and Finhorn elves, and of course we run Bop, Birds of Paradise. Very strong green card. And then we have Elvish Spirit Guide, of course. Goes in every green deck. Then we run Carpet of Flowers, obviously, because we live in a blue world. We do run Wild Growth. This is a card that I'm very iffy about, but this deck just wants mana, so we put it in here. And an interesting piece of ramp is Dramatic Reversal. I had some thoughts about this card. I see people running it as like a ramp slot in decks, but I really see the power of it. Once you're storming off, you're going, you have Toothy, you have 30 cards in your hand, but all your rocks are tapped, you got nowhere to go. So it's just nice to draw 30 cards, Dramatic Reversal, get all your mana back, and then just keep going. So that's why I run it in this deck. And then last, we have the land base. This deck runs about 25 lands just because of the amount of ramp. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. 17 pieces of ramp. It runs 25 lands, which could be, it could go up, but I just don't see a need for. Fetch lands, we have Scalded Tarn, Wooded Foothills, excuse me. Windswept Heath, Verdant Catacombs, Polluted Delta, Misty Rainforest, Prismatic Vista, Flooded Strand. These are the fetch lands we run. Prismatic Vista, I think, goes in every deck because every deck should run basics, in my opinion. But, yep. These are all the fetches. Let's go over here. Obviously, you run Boseiju and Otawara because they're probably the best lands that they've printed. Best cards of 2022 by far. Best cards that came out. These two lands. And I'm glad I'm in Simic because I can play both of them. It's the best part. You have, of course, Ancient Tomb, Gemstone Caverns, Urza's Saga. For the colorless lands, Gemstone Mine could be, or not Gemstone Mine, Gemstone Caverns could be counted as a colored land or colorless land, but these are your colorless lands. We have Pain lands that hurt you. Cephala Coliseum, because drawing 3 cards is great. Waterlog Grove, because drawing cards is great. You have your Breeding Pool Shockland. You have your Yayamaya Coast. And you have, they would technically be rainbow lands, but they're mainly just pain lands. So you got Mana Confluence and City of Brass. So the lands that hurt you. And then you have your Cavern Souls, so your commanders can't be countered. Because if you go pop off, pop off, pop off, pop off, kill your commander, if somebody has a red blast, they're definitely going to murder Toothy. So that's why you want your Cavern Souls. Or if you're about to place the Displacer Kitten, you could name Cat or Wizard. You have, obviously, Tropical Island goes in every Simic deck. Dreambank Springs, 2 or more opponent lands. Love to see them. Command Tower is basically just a tropical island. And then you have 2 basics. I haven't decided which basics I want to go with yet, so I have 1 of each. The oil slicked Farxie ones or the Pro Farxie ones. I think I'm going to go with the oil slicked ones, but I'm just not sure yet. But, yeah, that is the deck. So, that is my Pir and Toothy list. Video is not anything crazy. I know it's not what most of my viewer base expects, but this is kind of the direction I want to go with my channel. I'll post the deck list in the description, so you can take a look for yourself. It's kind of under construction right now. I don't know if it'll be fixed by the time I upload this video, but it will be there. But yeah, the main goal of this deck is just to storm off with Toothy and Displacer Kitten. It's the best card in the deck. Displacer Kitten is amazing in this deck. But yeah, Toothy advantage. Pir is there to double the counters and give me green. Yeah, but that'll be the deck. I will post some gameplay videos within next 2 weeks. And I'll post my other 2 deck decks. If you guys want to see them, just let me know if you want to see them or not. And then, yeah, that'll do it. I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.